Uh-oh. Guys, I think we are live. So if you see us, let us know in the comments. Let us know where you're from.
There we are.
There we are.
Okay.
There's like a little 10-second delay here from here. So, and this is washing us out a little bit, but guys, we're so excited. We're going to get these technical difficulties figured out. A couple things, my throat's being weird, so I might sound a little hoarse, but it's just the way it is. I don't feel like I strained it or anything. If you guys can hear us fine, if everything's clean, looking good, etc., just pop in the comments, let us know. If audio and video synced up, that's a big one. Yeah.
Happy Sunday.
Yes.
Happy March. Beginning of March. Hey, everybody.
Yes.
Hey, Shelby and Melissa.
There we
and
go.
Evan and Faye.
There we go. What's up, guys? And also, just for future reference, you don't have to like comment and say, where's the live video or anything like that. It should, if you're part of the group, notify you that we went live. So you can kind of just hang out. If we're within a minute or two, you should get a notification and say we went live. So we're so excited you guys are here. We're just going to jump into it here in a second. And thank you guys for the feedback. We're good to go. I wanted to make this a little bit better and nicer. So we did HD video and microphone and all that, which is why it took a minute or two. Even though I, of course, tested it before. Everything was fine. It got weird right when we started. You guys are awesome. We're excited for this first month. We're excited to jump into it. So I'll just go ahead and jump into it. So if you read the PDF, you know that this month is how to have a vision or how to have a mission for your marriage, for your family, if you have kids. And I know there's some engaged couples or seriously dating couples out there too. We're going to be talking about marriage, obviously, because this is a monthly marriage workshop. But I know that if you're in this, you're serious, and this will apply too. And we'll talk to that in a little bit. Yeah, is there anything you'd add for the intro in regards to that first? Just anything?
No, we're just really excited. I think we're hitting off the first month really strong, and we're really excited about the PDF that we sent out for you guys and what we're going to be talking about today and next week. And just really excited at the end of the month to finally hear from all of you guys of how you're going to apply it. And Jeff and I, we've studied this a lot. This is a really high priority in our marriage about mission and vision, but we're also this month going to be walking alongside with you guys and really we have a mission and vision, but we've never written it down. So we're really going to set it down, like foundationally, put it up in our house. So we're really excited to be doing it alongside with you guys too. Yeah,
this has been a big part of our life for almost like 3 years at this point. But yeah, we thought it'd be fun to wait till we're on this journey with you guys to really nail it down. We have some fun ideas we'll show you in a little bit. Couple announcements before we get started. I sound like I have emphysema. Go get the PDF on the membership site or on Facebook. You don't have to have it while we're going through it, but that's for if people are looking for it. Here's the schedule for the month. So we're doing the webcast at the beginning of the month, the first Sunday. And then each month we'll kind of roll out the informal schedule for that month after the webcast. So the way we're going to do it this month is tomorrow we're actually going to talk to some friends of ours, Craig and Jeanette Gross, who have heard a talk like this similar from us, and it actually spurred them on to kind of write it down on paper, create a mission, create a vision. And they have this awesome document now as a family, and they go through it together and they use it for their mission and vision. It's really awesome. So we're going to talk to them tomorrow so you guys can kind of see, oh, okay, this is how someone applies it. This is how someone takes it and runs with it.
And the really cool thing about them is they've been married for
almost 20 years.
And they have teens and tweens in their house. So I think this can apply no matter if you're engaged or have been married for 30 years or are in the thick of it. You can kind of jump in wherever you're at.
Yeah, exactly. And then in about a week or two, we're going to then share ours with you guys so you guys can kind of see how this applies from what we're talking here to the nuts and bolts on the ground. And then the last week of the month, we're going to build it and write it out together. So informally, on your own time, go through the PDF questions the next 2 to 3 weeks. And it's okay if you don't nail anything down. It's okay if you don't have to have a 10-hour meeting about it. It's okay because at the end of the month, we're going to we're going to sit on it and marinate for a couple weeks. And then at the end of the month, we're all going to try to put it down on paper. And I'm really excited for that. And we have some fun surprises for you guys. And then lastly, like I mentioned, we're going to do giveaways every single month because we want to bless marriages. So we want to pour back into you guys. So we're going to do some date night gift cards some months. I think this month we might even pay for a couple people to, get their mission statement designed all pretty and Pinterest and Etsy like. And so we want to always pour back into you guys. It's going to be really, really fun. And so I'm just going to jump into it. Here we go. So vision and mission for your marriage. Now, the reason it's important and the reason we think it's important is because I think God gives every marriage a vision and a mission from the beginning. And if you don't know that and you don't understand what God has put into action and put into this rotation on earth in regards to us as image bearers, then you won't understand why you're here. So it's kind of the big why question on all of marriage. And I think every marriage has a mission. Every marriage has a vision. And if you poke through the PDF, the way I like to say it is every marriage has a general mission. Every marriage has a particular mission. So let's first talk about the general mission. And what I mean by that is every marriage, when a man and a woman come together in covenant under the Lord's blessing and goodness and in relationship with him, every marriage on earth gets given a vocation or a vision or a mission that's kind of the same. And it doesn't really differ on personality or doesn't matter where you live. God wants to use marriages and this male plus female entity in a very special particular way. And so that's the general mission. So I want to talk about that for a second. Now, going to Genesis, we see this creation narrative, right? Where I think understanding Genesis 1, 2, and 3 I think can radically transform your marriage. I think Genesis 1, 2, and 3 is one of those chapters in the Bible that, or those couple chapters in the Bible where if you get those and you keep digging and getting out the jewels from there, it'll transform your walk, transform your life with the Lord. And so the creation narrative, to summarize it, it's essentially that God created everything. He created fruit and trees and animals and the earth. And it said heaven and earth were created. And they're kind of these two spheres that are actually one. His domain, our domain in unity and entity. What a cool picture of marriage, by the way, right there. Which is, by the way, why it says at the end of time, marriage, heaven's going to come down to earth like a bride adorned for her husband. So marriage is actually kind of about heaven and earth, also in some sense. And so God does all this, and then he creates this order out of chaos in this middle of the earth called Eden. And we all know that. But one common misconception is that we think Eden is the whole earth. We have this picture of like when God created the earth and there was no sin, that everything was great. There was all these trees, all these fruits, all these animals. There was in the Garden of Eden, but there wasn't in the rest of the world. And I think a lot of people just have this picture of like paradise and everything's great. But especially from the Jewish perspective, and you dig into the old ancient Hebrew roots of Genesis, you see that it was actually more like God created a prototype called the Garden of Eden. And what we mean by that is God created the Garden of Eden in the sense that we know it's beautiful, it's ordered, it's out of chaos, it looks good, but the rest of the earth didn't look like that, and that was on purpose, right? It was almost as if God did that and then wanted to, out of the outflow of love in his heart and relationship in the Trinity, create fellow image bearers, people that look like him. The crowning act of creation is the last thing in eternity, in that creation. And then he puts us in that garden and kind of says, okay, study this and go make everything else out there look like this. Because outside of the garden, it was untamed, it was chaotic, it wasn't ordered, it wasn't brought into fruition. And there would be no job left to do if it all did, because that was the job God gave everyone, right? And I want to read that real quick. It says, it's in Genesis 2:15 through 17, where it basically says that the Lord God put the man in the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it. So if everything looked perfect and there was no sin and death and decay already yet, then there would be no job for mankind, for Adam and Eve. But it sounds to me like it's like, okay, no. There's a pocket that's ordered, but the rest is chaotic. Your job is to go out there and bring it into order. Bring beauty out of the chaos and go make something, go cultivate, go create, go uplift. And so that's the original mission in general given to every marriage, that you are actually put on this earth primarily to actually go out and create and cultivate as a team unit in the world. So that could be medicine or art or politics or food, or it could be parenting, it could be kids, it can be whatever. But God has brought you two together to go out in this world, just like every other marriage, to go create and cultivate. He basically says it's a really big job. You're going to need someone else to help you. You're going to need a teammate, right? And that's what Eve was actually created as, these two equals that go out and cultivate and create and fulfill that mandate. And on top of that, he actually says, and to even do it more so, be fruitful and multiply. So it's like that's not just because God just wants us to have babies because it was a cool idea. It's actually like, you're going to need babies to do this, right? Like if this is the little garden, there's the rest of the earth, you're going to need a lot of kids to perpetuate this blessing. So another way to put it is God's idea from the very beginning was to create this unique entity called a marriage to be one of his primary vehicles to perpetuate his blessing and goodness and beauty into the world. And he knew that through marriage and the multiplication of kids through that line, he would be able to do that. I mean, what a creative, cool, awesome idea that God brought these two different entities, male plus female, separate but equal, right? In the sense of they're different, brings them together as equal, shoulder to shoulder, and says, no, now go out as this team entity and fulfill that garden mandate. So a question to you guys, when you're trying to figure out your mission and your vision, one of the biggest questions you can ask in your marriage is, what is your garden, right? Because God says he put them in the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it. So the first marriage, they were gardeners, right? And I think every marriage metaphorically is gardeners. Think about how a gardener takes raw materials and they make something beautiful, right? They take soil and shovels and seeds, and then they use the natural resources of water and sun, and that's chaotic. There's all these things that are separate and they're not beautiful yet. And through the labor, they create something beautiful that nourishes other people, that feeds them through fruits and vegetables, or just creates beauty like a really awesome plant or flower. And so every job can be seen as that. Art, politics, food, music is seen as taking raw materials, making something beautiful. Music is taking raw sounds and somehow stringing them together when you have that gift. I don't. As she knows.
I don't either.
And making something beautiful. Yeah. And so what's your garden? And it doesn't have to be something in the sense of an obvious creative job, by the way. It can be anything, parenting. It can be your attitude. It can be homemaking. It can be a father's heart, whatever it is. It can be mental is what I'm trying to say sometimes too. Not just like go out and do these big things. It's really about cultivating order out of chaos in your heart and in the life. So what is your garden? That's the first question. And we've been married 5 years and known each other for almost eight now, I think, or more than that. We ask that question all the time, and it's a changeable thing. So don't feel like it, and we want to say this a couple times, don't feel like this is like the mission statement this is our mission statement, and here's our garden, and we're never going to change it for 30 years. No, I think it actually should be changed in seasons. It kind of ebbs and flows, and you seek God's direction with your family. You let that define your trajectory for a couple years, and then you let it change. And so you follow the Lord's leading. So what is your garden? We're gonna add something?
Well, I was just saying, I think your mission statement, which we'll get into a little more in a little bit, it can be broad, and I think that sticks with you for the rest of your life, but then how you live it out looks different. So the garden you are doing can look different in different seasons, and I think that depends on gifts that you guys have and seasons of life, what if you have kids, what season they're in, what jobs you take on, where you live, like that stuff can all ebb and flow. And I think the really cool thing about what Jeff is talking about is a garden is that God put you and your husband, you and your wife together, knowing that you guys needed each other, like it's for a bigger mission. And so sometimes when we can feel like we're at odds with each other, we don't enjoy our spouse, or like flat out don't like them, or you can feel at odds, or like we're not on the same mission, knowing that God had a complete purpose for you guys to be together. And so it's just asking him, like, Lord, show us what mission you have for each of us to be on together. And I think another really cool thing about that is a lot of the times we can enter marriage, or as we settle into it, and we can believe that what the culture feeds us, that marriage is for our happiness. Like, he's supposed to make me happy, I'm supposed to make him happy, and like you're just always...
She's about to preach. No. She's about to preach.
You're like looking at each other, and I think that's just taking so much away from the Lord, instead of you look at each other, but then we're also looking out on mission. Because if you're only looking at each other to make each other happy, then your marriage can only go so far. And then when the other person fails, or you get disappointed by them, you just feel like, well, what's the purpose of our marriage? And like, well, well, I'm not in love with them anymore because they don't make me happy anymore. Instead of, no, like the purpose of marriage is for our holiness, and God has a mission for us, and we're meant to be together to proclaim the gospel in some art form, some way. And it's for us to become more like Jesus and to know him better. But I need my husband, I need my wife to do that. Like, God knows that we need each other for this calling that he has for us. So anyway, just a couple quick things on what you just said.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on that. Oh man, guys, sounds like I have like something. Am I going through puberty right now? I don't know. I want to piggyback on that. I think, so many marriages expect the ultimate sustaining power for their marriage to come simply from the face-to-face romance. Now, do you need to be intimate with each other? Yes. Romantic? Yes. Pursue each other? Yes.
Have a good friendship.
Have a good friendship? Yes. But if you're only facing each other and just trying to draw all the love and purpose and vision from each other in regards to insecurity, in regards to how much you love each other in like this kind of like romantic way, it'll self-terminate, meaning it can't sustain itself. It's not just face-to-face, but it's also shoulder-to-shoulder, where you're looking out in the world and saying, what can we go accomplish and do together, and why has God brought us together? And that gets me to my last point, and then I'll let her go. And by the way, we're going to try to keep this within 30, 35 minutes, and then we want to, because stuff like this, we feel like is most practical with Q&A. So write your questions in the comments. I'll be scrolling through and bookmarking, and I'll try to answer those the last 15 minutes after the 30-ish or so minutes of us talking. And so I think we're about halfway into that. Now, why that reminded me of my last point is now the particular mission. So you have to understand the theological Genesis garden mandate that's on every marriage. And that is that you are to be gardeners. You are put in this world to be co-laborers with God. He wanted relationship with you. He wanted you to go out and perpetuate his blessing and his goodness into the world. But the particular mission then becomes, okay, now you two watching this, you and your husband, or if you're watching it separately and you're going to talk about it later, you two have a DNA in you and a God-given particular purpose that is different from the general. And what I mean by that is you two together create an entity that cannot be replicated anywhere else on earth, right? That you two somehow got brought together, and that you two are somehow different than any other two humans that have been brought together in human history. And so then with that in mind, you then have to seek, okay, then what is that for? What is that for? And I think that gets into some really good conversations of, and you maybe saw a little bit of this when we did the 5-day challenge of, okay, God, like we're a team. So let's see our differences and our personalities as assets, not weaknesses, and how these are actually, and how God brought me together with another person to actually kind of complement, hedge, to guard, and to make me more full, right? Because I have a lot of weaknesses, but I also know that she has particular strengths that usually cover those weaknesses, and vice versa. And so I think you have to ask, okay, what is that? And instead of seeing each other's weaknesses as weaknesses, those then turn into strengths, because you go, oh, we now become a fuller, more perfect image of what it means to be a full entity pursuing and following Jesus. And we're better together than we are separate, basically. And you have to seek that. What is that? Why have you two been brought together in a different way? And it can be big stuff like, this is our vision and our mission for the next 10 years in regards to like our job, and you just stick with it. Or it can be like smaller stuff. Like, for example, I would say one thing I would say that our particular personalities are gifted with, or at least wired with, is hospitality. So that doesn't feel like that's like our, garden mandate, vocation, like creative thing. In some sense it is. But I think it's an aspect. I think it's a division or an arm of our marriage that we can, whether it's the house we're in, or whether it's our personalities we've been given, or whether it's our demeanors in regards to not caring necessarily that the house has to be perfect, or whatever it is. I just think we have been wired in a way where we can open our door and invite people to our table in our community, usually a little bit more than other people. Not that one's right or wrong. I'm just saying I've noticed that about us, and so then we see that as an asset, and we try to actually perpetuate that and live in that, if that makes sense. And there's bigger ones as well. So then when you got to start general so that you can understand, start at the right place with God and theology and scriptures, then distill that down to particular, and that's what I think Alyssa's going to get into now of the practicals, because then once you start getting into the particular, then that's when, going back to the PDF, you start answering those questions of how are we wired, what do we want to accomplish in life, what do we feel about God, what are our kids like, what are all those. I think I put like 15 questions in that PDF between me and her, and so that will let you get to the particular, and then you start writing stuff down, start scribbling. We kind of call them pillars, and I put that in the PDF where we have these like 7 or 8 pillars. We'll talk about that in a couple weeks, that these are the driving forces of our life and our marriage. And if something doesn't fit into that, we usually say no to it. And she'll talk about that. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to encourage you guys with, is the general and the particular. And these are kind of 2 gas pedals that when you understand both of those, it lets you really live in a healthy dynamic. So, yeah. You want to take it?
Okay, so check out the PDF and look at those questions. Talk about them today after this, or this week on date night, or just in general throughout the next couple weeks. So you guys can really see, what do you see God calling you on mission for? What is your calling and your giftings? And how do you want to encourage each other in that? And then also, what is your particular DNA in your marriage? And what do you want to set as your mission statement that you can like put everything through? And then what pillars are really important to you guys? What values and priorities do you really hold on to that make, you know, the Smiths and the Bethkes, like that is who you are, and this is, and everything kind of goes through that. And like we kind of mentioned before, I think too, within this mission and vision, I think the mission kind of stays for a really like forever. Like it can be very general, like it can be very general. I'm not going to give details yet, but then the vision too, I think it kind of ebbs and flows throughout the seasons that you're in. So don't feel the pressure that, oh my gosh, I have to plan out the next 30 years right now, or like, especially if you're engaged and you're not with each other yet. It's like, you could be scared to just make it really.
Yeah.
Like
too intimidating.
It could be too intimidating.
But speak to the opposite side of that. I know there's some couples watching that are part of this group that have been married 30 years.
Yeah.
And I think, like what you said, it changes, and so don't think that, oh, we've been married 30 years, we don't have a mission or vision anymore, or we should have done that a long time ago, but we didn't. No, I think God gives you new visions and new missions every season of life. So whether you've been married 30 years or 3 months. Yeah.
So I'll just give a quick example of that to help you understand what we're saying. So for instance, if you've been married 30 years and you had kids, most likely your kids are out of the house by now, and so your life looks completely different. And it may be scary, or like, what do we do now? Or it may be really exciting, but this may be a really good time to sit down and say, okay, this is where we've been, this is what has been really important to us. Now where do we want to go, and what do we want to be about as empty nesters and as grandparents and whatever that may be. And for instance, my really good friend, they have little kids who are 2 and 4, and they have a mission statement and a vision. But this last season, her husband, they own a business, and he just was required to work a lot more hours than usual. And so for her, one of her priorities is, like, she loves having a house that's really clean, that's important to them. They host a lot of people, and it makes her feel really calm, and that's, you know, it's a way to serve her husband. But it just wasn't possible because her husband was working later hours, and so usually when he was home and she could kind of do housework or get the meals ready, he wasn't. And for them, the bigger priority was being really intentional with their kids and being really caring for their hearts and how they're doing. And so for her, in this little season, like 6 months, she had to kind of let go of having a really clean and perfect home because the kids were a higher priority and knowing their hearts. So if that just kind of speaks to, like, set a vision, but hold it with an open hand and giving you and your spouse a lot of grace, that some seasons things go higher up on the list and some need to go further down on the list, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so practically, the reason why a vision is really important for your marriage is, one, I think a lot of times in marriage we can be a lot more reactive and then instead of proactive, and so we react to the chaos of life. It gets really busy, and you know, when you guys work and you don't see each other that often, or if you have kids in the mix and, you know, they need a lot of attention, or if someone gets sick or soccer practice, whatever it is, it can feel like life can kind of just get away from you, and sometimes it can feel like you're on survival mode, or like, okay, the next 6 months, like, it's just whatever. Like, it's just whatever, we're going to survive, and then we'll plan it out later on. And I think we don't have to live like that. Some seasons are survival mode, and that's okay. But for your marriage, I think a lot of times, we've talked about this before, it can seem like marriage should just be natural, and it should, we love each other, we should just naturally get along and naturally do all these things. But it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of communication and talking about what are your priorities, what is your vision. And I think you can be proactive, and so you don't look back on the last 20 years and say, wow, the things that were really important to us, we just didn't get a chance to do because we were just trying to get through. And so just like having that long-term vision for your marriage and where you want to go and what goals and dreams you have and what you want to be known as. I
just want to add one thing, because that's so good. Because the truth of the matter is, every cultural power has a mission and vision. And, like, your work has a mission and vision that's going to try to suck, you into its mission and vision. The sexual revolution culture, pornography, whatever it is, that has a mission and vision that's going to suck you into that as well. Social media, right? Like those aren't just made by robots. Like, Facebook executives have a mission and a vision that they are trying to accomplish in regards to gaining your attention for every second of every day. And if you don't have a competing mission and vision, you will lose. And so I think that's what she's saying is, like, if you don't have one, a mission and a vision that's really kind of nailed down, talked about frequently between you and the kids, then you do this classic thing, usually within a year rotation, where you just kind of live reactive the whole year of, like, whatever calls, whatever beckons, and you're tired and busy, and so then, now we need a retreat, now we need a vacation, and you get to the end of the year and you go, oh, that sucked, that was really hard, that wasn't fun, I felt like we just kind of got drug along in our life. And so then you go really hard with the New Year's resolutions and goals, and then it happens all, then you last till February, and then it happens all over again. But a mission and a vision, it sustains you through that. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, and so to go off of that, so anyway, when you do have your vision, I think too what Jeff is saying, then when things that compete for your attention, I think it's just really easy then to make, not super easy, but it really helps you make decisions.
No, I think it is. Yeah.
I mean, decisions can still be hard, but when something comes at you, at your husband, whether it's a really great thing, a lot of things can be really good things, but that we need to say no to. And so something can come in and say, hey, this is a really good thing, but does it go along with our vision for our lives or for the season, for where we're at, Jeff's like, yeah.
No, that's good. That's not like...
So I think it's like a filter. And so it makes decision making a lot easier. You're able to say no, and not no in a guilty way because, this is a really good thing and I have to say no. But it's like, no, this is a really good thing, but it's just not good for us. It's not where we're going. And so we need to not say yes to that. So that makes it really good. I think too, it's an easy way to lead your family when you have a vision. It's, a lot of times as a wife, it can feel really hard if you don't know where you're going or you don't know what you're about, and you want your husband to lead, but he doesn't necessarily have the tools or he's not saying it, and so we can get discouraged or resentful or feel like we have to nag them, or we can feel really insecure or alone because or purposeless because we don't know where we're going and what our purpose is in this season or any of that. And so I think when you sit down and you have this vision for your family, I feel like it's just setting you up for so much success because you're on the same team and you're on the same page, which is so important for marriage. The worst thing in marriage, I think, is when you're not on the same team and you feel like he's going this way and you're going this way, and you want to come together, but you don't know how, and you keep going like this. And so I feel like when you have a vision, it just automatically is like, okay, we're on the same team, or if we get off the track, then let's go back to the vision. How do we get back onto this team, and where are we going? And I feel like it brings so much security in the marriage because you're like tracking with each other. And so I just feel like in just a small sense, like as a wife, a vision statement brings so much security into the marriage.
Yeah, and so we're just about 30 minutes, so if you have questions, type them in. We'll try to answer them. I love that, and she just got my brain spinning, so I want to try to answer a couple things real quick. First one is what she just ended on. The reason it's so important is because it saves you from a million fights. It really does, right? And now it takes time to to get a mission and a vision. It doesn't happen overnight. For us, in some sense, it took years. I'd probably say like the initial passion and casting of it, probably a couple weeks, couple months, but then we still morph it and still kind of sit on it and pray about it and distill it. And that probably took a lot longer. But it's like what she said, the mission and vision of your family becomes this objective third party that you realize everyone it's in everyone's best interest to submit to that, rather than like, oh, this is what I want to do and I'm going to do that. Or you just have to suck it up. Or, oh, this is what I want to do and you just have to suck it up and follow. No, it's like this is an objective third party entity almost in our marriage that both of us have agreed on is where God is taking us. And so then we get to pass the decisions through there and say, does it fit or does it not fit? And of course there's more, sometimes it fits, but it's still not a good decision, whatever. But in general, 9 times out of 10, just having that filter and knowing that both of you are kind of submitting to it is a huge blessing. Another thing that makes it really good is if you have kids, the mission and vision allows you to explain your rules that don't make sense to the kids. A lot of kids hear, don't do that, or we're not going to do that, or, oh, you can't have a phone, or whatever it is. And they just go, like that's dumb. Mom's dumb, or dad's, I don't get it. But if they know the mission and vision and it's distilled in them and it's kind of, massaged into their DNA over years, then they realize like, oh, that's coming from the vision. That's coming from like, this is one of our pillars. And so this is why it's playing out like this. I think that helps a lot. Another thing is everyone should be on board with the mission and vision. Like if it's, if you think your mission is to go to Timbuktu and preach the gospel, or if you think your mission is to be a pastor and your wife and your kids don't think that's the mission, then you shouldn't be a pastor. I think a lot of times dads especially have this weird, bad theology, I would call it, where we think God gives them a vision and then the whole family has to follow. In some case God might, but and you gently, lovingly, like Jesus, can try to approach your family and woo them into hopefully following you because you're taking them to a good and better place. But if it like is making everyone drown, then no, I don't think that's from the Lord at all. And I think everyone in some sense should be able to speak into it if your kids are of age, and everyone should have a part in it and everyone should kind of agree with it. And so before we hop into questions, those are just some things we wanted to add. It's very important. It's very pivotal because it is that filter that kind of creates this thing for you. And I do think it's easy, like Alyssa said. I think it's easier for us to say no to things because of that. And one last challenge, I want to talk to you husbands out there. If, like, for example, here's where our mission and vision collided with how our life was one time, and it changed our life. I was speaking and traveling a lot, probably 30 times a year, getting on a plane. Getting on a plane and leaving the family. And at first, Alyssa would come with me before we had kids because it was fun and it was adventurous, and that was part of our mission, is that I was preaching and I was getting to do all these cool things and tell people about the Lord. But once we start having kids, then your mission kind of starts changing and your vision starts changing. And I felt like I kept running with that single vision or that vision without kids. And Alyssa was kind of like, oh, hold up, that's taxing. I don't want to come with you anymore. That makes me anxious about kids' schedules. And so there was this gap starting to happen where we would get frustrated with each other. When I realized, okay, then we started to distill our mission and vision. And one of them was family. One of them was, and not just family, but that we actually theologically believe that family is one of God's primary vehicles to bring good into the world and bring the message of Jesus. And so we want to concentrate on that, pour into that, double down on that. And to me, I had a hard time squaring, okay, I'm leaving them twice a month for 4 days to go speak when this is our mission and our vision, when I don't really feel like this is as much. And so then basically it came to a collision and I stopped. I stopped speaking and traveling, and I'll go maybe 3 times a year now, 4 times a year. And almost always it's actually together as a family. We kind of leverage it to be kind of a fun trip for all of us. The kids come, it's a blast. And that was crafted around the mission and vision rather than trying to shove something into the mission and vision, if that makes sense. And so that's a really good example of sometimes you'll have to make hard decisions. And a lot of times it does have to do with work. Are you willing to take your job and put it at the feet of Jesus and say, Jesus, is this job actually in line with our mission and vision, or is it the opposite, right? Like, is there burnout? Is there, you never see each other? Is there some other factors? Now again, there sometimes is a season of sacrifice to hopefully build something and lead somewhere. And if you guys feel like that's your mission and vision, then go for it. But if you feel like there's so much tension because of that, then that might be a sign that God wants to take you somewhere better. And so that's just one little last thing I wanted to add there, is that you can trust him with all those things. And he's good. So
can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
So I think what Jeff
and then
was saying,
type the questions in. We'll answer them.
what we're saying is, go home tonight or wherever you talk about this, and just put everything on the table, like everything: your job, your extracurricular activities, hobbies you do, whatever it is. Just put everything on the table and then talk about it. What are things that are really important to us that are working well or not? And it's kind of like I remember in Sunday school having this jar, and it was like you put in the big rocks first, of like the really important pillars of your life or your marriage, and then like kind of you put the sand in second, and kind of trickles down.
Yes.
And so we're encouraging you to figure out what those big rocks are, and if they work for your family, and if something isn't working, then to surrender to the Lord and just trust him to let you say no to it, to let go of it, to maybe it's just not this season and you'll get it back later on, or maybe having the courage to stop something and take something else on. Whatever it is, whatever's best for your family, to really just kind of give it out on the table and be honest about what are we doing right now? Is it working?
Yeah.
How does it line up with our vision? So maybe this is after you set your vision, but yeah.
Yeah, and you guys are already asking great questions. I'm going to try to combine like 3 or 4 of these because they're similar. I think you guys want us to elaborate a little bit more. One of them is, Matthew said, should we basically have 2 visions, like if there's 2 people in the marriage, or one overarching vision, but one that kind of changes per... Oh, I see what you're saying. Should you have one overarching one and then one that changes per season? Lindsay asked, do you have pillars that do not change from season to season? And Grace asked, is our mission what we as a couple bring to the world? So I think there's questions on like, let me clarify. I don't think necessarily your mission and your vision is just what you individually are talented at. I don't necessarily, I think that's part of it and it contributes to it. Like it's a factor, but I do think you have to ask, what is the couple's mission and vision, and how does the talent and our gift setting and our wiring contribute to that? And then how do you choose the fit?
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So I think what we're saying is have a mission statement, like
Yes.
just a plain statement where God is calling you.
Yes.
Like, so for instance,
Well, we take, like for us, ours is the Lord's Prayer,
Yeah.
where it's, we feel particularly called to that prayer that Jesus says, where he says, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. But what we do is we change where it says earth to wherever we live. So on, or, in Seattle as it is in heaven, on Maui as it is in heaven. And what that does is that gives us this mission, this vision of, okay, we want to live in such a way that you can continue.
yeah.
So you're gonna take.
So it's kind of like if you remember in college or high school writing a paper, it's like your thesis statement. So for us, that prayer, it's specific, but it's really broad. Like a lot of things can go into that. And so that won't change for us. Like whatever happens, we will live.
Yes.
Lord, let your kingdom come as it is wherever we live, in our family, in our home, with our community, online, as it is in heaven. And then the vision for us is those pillars. So it's like
this, we're going to accomplish this by doing this.
Yeah, and so those are the things that is your and your spouse's DNA. So what your giftings are, what you feel called to, what you're passionate about. And we'll give a lot of examples throughout the month, but those are your pillars. And you could have 3 pillars, you could have 10 pillars, but those are the things that are really specific to you as a couple, and the things that might take precedence and not take precedence in certain seasons, and that kind of ebb and flow a little bit.
Exactly. And so I loved how she said that. And just to give you, like, there's flex. And so you really kind of have to ask how you guys are wired. You'll hear from Craig and Jeanette tomorrow on this page. I think they'll come live and we'll interview them, or I'll interview them and we'll talk about theirs. And I'm looking at theirs right now. They'll talk about it, but they're 8 kind of, they call them the gross goods. And it's kind of their, because their last name's Gross, Craig Gross, Jeanette Gross. So it's the gross goods. And it's like, these are the 8 things. And they say we want our family to be good with. And theirs is God, marriage, family, friends, health, work, money, and fun. And then they have a page on each of those that says, this is how we're going to do that. So that's different than ours. And ours is more of like, here's our thesis statement, here's how we want to see it, and then here's how we're going to accomplish it. And ours is a little bit more specific with pillars like hospitality and rhythm and stuff like that. And so you got to kind of sit in how you're wired and sit in how you think you can best accomplish that. But I think, that was a really good way to break it down, because I was having trouble clarifying that difference. So I like that thesis statement, and then your pillars or your gross goods, your big things. So,
okay, so Faith asked, what happens if you come up with the same mission together, but then have conflict on what the best ways is to actually accomplish the mission?
You want to do that?
You go for that.
That's a really good question, Faith. I think
will be a common thing
with
couples.
Yes. I think really let the tension teach you. And what I mean by that is, instead of someone just winning on how to accomplish, there probably is a middle ground that's more beautiful and more perfectly applied to your DNAs and your wirings. And so let that tension hold, and let that tension bring you guys to a place of kind of almost accomplishing both in a sense, and really seeking the Lord. You got to seek the Lord on this too, because sometimes a spouse will come back and say, you're right, I prayed about it. You're right. Like, I want to go with what you're saying. So you're going to add something?
Oh, I just was going to add, I had written this down too. Make sure you guys talk about it. Just share it all. Leave it on the table, and then listen to each other. And I think too, sometimes in a marriage you can feel like, oh, well, they're the visionary and I'm not, so whatever they say, like, let's just go with it. But no, have both of you bring stuff to the table, talk about it. Don't just go along with things. And then, ask the Lord to be in the conversation and to protect you against argument and conflict, because that's, of course, what Satan wants right now, and how to come together at it. And I think so, and it's learning to listen to each other, to be one when we're two separate people. It's learning to let, their gifts that are different from you play a part, and not compare or compete or let that discourage you. So just really listening to each other and asking the Lord what he thinks, and then coming at it in a really humble way.
Yeah, good question. I'll try to do some rapid fire ones. Abby said, do you have examples of your pillars and how you use them to make decisions? Yes, and maybe you asked this before I answered it, that speaking and family one is a perfect example of, as a pillar for us that's huge, is family. And we actually believe that theologically God has brought us together as a team that's going to bring his blessing into the world. One of those pillars is not me speaking. It's fun, and I like it, and I feel like it maybe blesses people, but it's not a high level pillar for our family that I'm preaching all the time. And so that's an example of how that won, right? The family pillar made us change our lifestyle and essentially our job because of that. And so it helps you make decisions. Sandra said, how do teenagers that don't want to like anything you have brought to the table for your vision and mission, how does that play out? Sandra, good question. Let them speak into it. Let them make a pillar, or let them make a gross good or a theme here's a good question to ask teens or tweens. What do you want our family to be like? And how do you think we can accomplish that? If you actually let the kids speak into the culture of the home and let them kind of have decisions that shape the home with their giftings, like incorporate your kids' gifting in the home and in the family, that'll change everything. Let's see here.
Can I add one thing to that?
Yeah, and I'll look for more questions.
I think too, because that goes along with family. The Lord hasn't just brought you and your husband together, you and your wife together, but if you have kids, then he's brought your kids into the family, and he knows that you need them in order to accomplish the mission that God has given you guys. And so once you have kids and you have more kids, including them in your vision and really making them a part, because you need them to be part of your team to do what God is calling you to do. So, and I think what Jeff is saying, if you ask them, if you include their giftings into it, what they're passionate about, then I think they'll feel like some ownership over the vision and mission of your family, and they'll be excited about it, and they'll take part. Or even if they're not excited about something, I think then they'll understand, oh, but we do it because this is important, because of the...
Exactly. So if you have any more questions, ask them. I think we're going to sign off here in a second, so we'll just try to do a couple more rapid fires. Lindsay, this is a good question. What's an appropriate response when you have to decline on something because it isn't where your marriage is going, especially if people close to you don't seem to understand? I'm bad at this question because I feel like I'm just like, sorry.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm just like, this is where I'm taking our marriage and our family, and this is where we're going as a couple. So sorry if you disagree with that.
But
so I'll let her answer
that probably can be harder for women, or not necessarily, or if you have really close friends or parents that may not understand. So I think it's one, really being a team. It's not like, oh, well, my husband decided that, so I'm just going to go along with it.
Yeah.
You know, or it's not, whatever it is, but it's like, we have decided on this. And I think just being confident in your marriage and in what God has shown you to do, and trusting that you are pleasing Him, even if people don't understand. And sometimes people don't understand, and sometimes it's the people closest to you that may not understand. But I think once you stick it out, and if you're really kind about it, I think they will start to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense, or I'm glad you do that, or wow, I never would have thought about that. That's a really cool thing that you guys do. And so I think they will come.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But just being really confident in you guys as a team, and you're not pitting each other. I'm losing my words.
No, you got
against
it.
each other, but you're a team making this decision together.
Exactly. And so, again, a couple quick rapid fires. Karina, I like what you said about the business arrangement. I like to think of marriage like a business. And what I mean by that is, I actually think it's businesses stole a lot of ideas from God's design for family and marriage. And what I mean by that is, a really healthy way to protect the vision and mission is to treat it like a business, in the sense of businesses have year-end reviews, they have team summits, they have culture building classes, they have training, they have a job they're all trying to accomplish with their different assets. I think that's a really cool way to think about it in the big corporation standpoint. Lindsay, yes, good clarification. Does your mission change with seasons and your vision stays consistent throughout seasons? In general, yes. You can sometimes use those words interchangeably, but no, your mission is the thing it's right ahead of you. And then vision is kind of this long, dated, bigger picture. Now, it can be different.
Mine was opposite.
Well, that's what I think. I think it can be different, but that's how I think about it.
One is one and one's the other.
Exactly. So however you want to do that, go ahead. But that's how I tend to think about it. Let's see here. I think that's it.
The one question I want to answer, the last one we'll do, is how should engaged couples handle this? Should they handle it in a different way? Or should they go about this in a different way?
I don't think so. I think if you're engaged, I think start talking about it now, because when you're married, you'll be able to hit the ground running. And so, yeah, I don't think you'd have to do it any different. Obviously, you're not fully married yet, but I do think you can, not even partly married, you know what I mean? I do think there's a way where you can set yourself up well to enter into that marriage.
And I will say, I feel like as an engaged couple, you know more what your mission is than any other.
Yes.
When you're married, because it's like you guys have been brought together. You see that you're better together than apart. You want them, like, you know you can't live your life without them. And so I think setting your mission statement, the one that is the long haul one now, is so good. And then the pillars, setting them now, but knowing that
they'll change.
They might ebb and flow as you get to know each other better, as you understand yourselves better in marriage.
Yeah, and I think God leads in different ways. And Rusty, good question to sign off on. You said, how do you create this into a habit of revisiting it and making sure that decisions are going through this filter? I would say we probably revisit it once a year. The yearly calendar is a really good opportunity to kind of say, what are we about? Where do we want to go this next year? And what did we learn from ourselves and about ourselves this last year? But then I would also add the caveat of when there's breakdowns. Like when you start to feel like the family and the marriage is breaking down, just burnout, busy, hurt, arguments that become repetitive, I bet you can trace all that to a misalignment of vision and mission with each other. A lot of times you're just not on the same page of where God's taking you. And someone is being resistant to that mission and vision. But guys, we're so excited for this month. This is, sorry for my emphysema. This is nothing more than the big grenade. We still have a whole month ahead of us. So we're going to be charging through this. We're going to be answering questions. Our friends Craig and Jeanette, we're going to interview them tomorrow on Facebook Live on this page. And they'll say different stuff because they've done it differently. They've been married longer. And I think we did that on purpose because we wanted to show, like, take your guys' wirings and run with this. Don't feel like there's a framework that you got to stick to. Just cast a vision, seek the Lord, create some frameworks, create some things that you can filter your whole life through, and it changes everything. It changes everything. So we'll be back on tomorrow night with them. And just like always, it'll be re-uploaded. I'll try to go through the comments and answer ones that I feel like were unanswered or link to some resources and stuff like that. And so will Alyssa. But yeah, any final thoughts, any encouragements for the peeps?
No.
Nothing? Nothing?
This has been so fun, you guys. Thanks for joining us. We're really excited about tomorrow, talking to Craig and Jeanette.
Yes.
They're amazing. They're really close friends, but they're also really creative, so I'm excited to see how they did their pillars.
Yeah. So, all right. We love you guys. We're so stoked for this month. Thanks for being in the workshop. I hope you're already being blessed for 4 days in. Check out the PDF. Work through that. Like, those are questions that were very thoughtful and intentional for you to kind of, like, I think a lot of those questions can help you answer almost half of the questions that people ask today. So go through those, answer them, talk about them, go on a walk, talk about them at dinner. Keep doing that, and don't feel like you have to put it all down on paper in one night. Talk about the questions, talk about them. Bug?
I thought there was a bug, but it was just a hair.
Just talk about them and talk about them, sit on them, come back to them, and then towards the end of the month, we'll start applying. So we'll try to fill you guys up, get everything ready, and then at the end of the month, I'm really excited to see what everyone comes up with. So, all right, love you guys. You guys are awesome. Talk to you later.